it's I'll let you. My goodness, it has been quite a time with that. This is, I mean, he is 100% the like case study for why you need people in your life who can tell you no.
Yeah, the problem is when you have that much money, you just buy people who will tell you yes.
Exactly.
Hey, Reds officially
First
back
place.
on top.
Yeah, there.
Them and Milwaukee just keep trade.
Yep.
Watch though, somehow St. Louis is still going to come from behind and win it. I don't know how, but they'll do it somehow. They always do.
They'll do something.
I mean, they're not like it would be an insane comeback, but it's not like impossible still. It's just, you know, it would be absolutely insane, but it's not like it's not like they're 20 games back. So it's just 11. I mean, that's not bad.
Buckeyes got a big recruit.
Oh,
I mean, we need all the defensive players we can get. So
Yep. All right, I think I'm ready if you guys are. By the way, hello YouTube. Hope you guys are doing well.
hi
Hey,
YouTube.
let me check and make sure. Oh yeah, let's switch all of that back out.
YouTube, you're not changing your name to a letter also, are you?
Nah, they know better.
So I hate to tell you this, but Google's actual parent company is Alphabet.
That's okay.
You know, I'm kind of okay with that though. That makes sense.
And Google itself
And
is
to
a
be
number.
fair,
Plus, the
Exactly,
word
and-
is alphabet. It's not like their company name is ABC. Like,
right.
Well,
and also
wait,
they
hold
don't
on.
insist. They also don't insist that you call them Alphabet.
Yeah.
how
Google,
they get
Alphabet. Yeah.
how they get
Or,
Apple
like,
to okay the X like as the name? Because I thought they had to have.
oh, you
Did
guys have
they
it?
allow a space to be a character?
I don't know.
I wonder if that's how they did it. If they got around like a loophole. All right, my audio is good. I'm good to go.
Sweet. All right. Welcome to the Fifth and Goal podcast. My name is Aaron. I am joined, as always, by my good friends Josh and Johnny. We're back for another episode. Gentlemen, it is a packed episode full of just random college football news that happened this week. Look, we're still in the part of this summer where you really don't know what you're going to be talking about on a weekly basis. Like, sure, once we get to football season, we're going to talk about the games, or when it's June, you're talking about the NBA Finals. The schedule kind of lays it out for you. July and August is just all over the place. And sometimes it's a light week, and sometimes it's weeks that we had where all kinds of groundbreaking, game-changing news happens in college football. So we'll be talking about that. But first, Josh, what's up, man? How's your week?
I'm doing great. I just got back from a 3-day, I guess 2.5-day bachelor party,
Oh,
which is my first one in a while. The introvert in me died by the end of day one, and we still had 2 days to go. So that was fantastic for me. We did some fun things. Some of those things will actually make it into what I'm following, because I learned a lot of new stuff this weekend.
Nice.
Also, one of the biggest things I learned, and this is not what I'm following. This is too important for a side segment. Peacocks are an invasive species
dare
in
you.
North Dallas.
what? In Dallas? How are they in Dallas?
In Dallas. I do not know.
NBC
but
changed their headquarters?
I got to the place, which is in like a northern suburb. If Grapevine means anything to you, I went to Grapevine.
That's where they do the college football playoff selection,
I passed.
Josh.
I mean, on the way up, and we're going to talk about this in a second. On the way up on I-35, on I-35 North, I passed the Big 12 central headquarters, and I saw
No.
only champagne bottles, by the way. But
Yeah.
when we got to Grapevine, this house that we were going to stay at, there was literally a peacock in the front yard, and we were told you can't shoot it It's illegal to shoot it, but the city, because there's an actual like federal like thing on them.
They're not
But
native.
I don't know why you can't shoot them, other than the fact that maybe it's just in bad taste. But you are 100% allowed to capture them. So we spent most of the weekends trying to capture the one peacock that was being annoying right by us. And then we would have owned NBC. I think that's how it works.
I think so too.
I think that's how it
If
works.
you catch the animal that a product or company is named after, I think you just own it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. That checks out. Johnny, what's up? How you doing, man?
Good. Couldn't be any warmer during this hottest summer ever.
I'm so done with summer, dude.
I'm loving it though. I'm not gonna lie. I am loving it, and I love the fall. So this is like my happy 7-ish months, depending on the year. This year, like probably 7 months, and then staying up late. Women's World Cup. We had a thriller in the biggest upset of the tournament so far, and Germany getting taken out by Colombia, 93rd minute today. Germany is good if you weren't sure in men's and women's. They're actually the number 2 ranked team in the FIFA World Rankings. They got taken out by Colombia today. Still group stage, so they're not eliminated. They still hold their own fate in their hands going into the third game, but now everything's on the line for Germany, kind of like the U.S. after tying that second game, against the Dutch. So, the women's game's getting better. The gap is closing, which makes for far more entertaining and fun games.
Yeah, I got to ask, we'll dive into this matchup here in a bit, but what's your strategy for, I guess it's technically Tuesday morning at 3 a.m. Eastern time, the women finishing out group play against Portugal. Are you going to get up early? Are you going to stay up crazy late? Are you going to watch it like delayed? What's your strategy?
I think some naps are on the line. Also, I have to stay up till midnight anyway because I'm going on a trip to Colorado this fall. And if you're not familiar with Rocky Mountain National Park and some of the other national parks, you have to reserve timed entrance. So that means it has to be done at least I believe it's like the first of the month before, if that makes sense. So going in September means August 1st. So I'm staying up anyway till past midnight to do the reservation. So at that point, since it starts at 1 a.m., it's I
think it's 3 a.m. Isn't it 3 a.m.?
Is it 3 a.m.?
I'm almost positive it's 3 a.m.
I'll have to look again. Yeah. That's probably Fox screwing me up, wanting me to watch
tune into
their
2 hours
pregame coverage for 2 hours.
Yep.
So, okay, well then I'll probably do the reservation, take a quick nap, wake up again, watch the game. We'll all be good. We'll be thrown off completely on Tuesday, but that's all right. That's fine. This is what we do for sports.
That's right. We're committed over here at Fifth and Goal. Mike's joining us on YouTube. Just want to give a shout out to Mike. Thanks for hopping on the live stream. We do try to live stream the recording of this show. It's usually Monday night. We're recording on a Sunday night. Straight to jail, Johnny and I, for making plans on our normal recording night. But we're take 2 of going to the Columbus Crew and trying to actually watch a soccer game. So I think it's allowed. I think we're allowed to make plans if they're sports related. Anything else, straight to jail. I think. I don't know.
Especially since the weather went mutiny on us last time we attempted, and that was on a Sunday. So by the way, everyone, we were gonna be on schedule.
Yeah, we were.
So Crew versus Club America should be really fun. Lots of yellow and black in the stands.
Yeah, sell out there in Columbus. Excited. We'll break it all down next week. We'll let you know how that game went. My week was also good, guys. I am the opposite of Johnny. I am absolutely over summer weather. I hate it. Give me literally weather from spring, fall, or winter over summer. Just weather.
No.
There's some activities that you can I enjoy. We went and I went on a bunch of water slides yesterday. I can't do that in the winter. I get it. But overall, summer weather, just the worst. Give me fall and give it to me as soon as humanly possible.
Spring is the worst. I hate spring.
I'm not even going to go there. I'm not pulling up the monthly rankings. Your power rankings are crazy. We've already put you in jail for that. I don't need to get into that because, frankly, we don't have time for that because we have to get into all of this college football chaos. There's kind of 3 big ticket points that we'll cover. Let's just start with the big one that everyone's talking about and honestly is still ongoing. Look, this thing is happening so fast that by the time this episode comes out, which will only be a couple days from now, this information may be old news. Like, there may be a different discussion happening in a couple days. And of course, what I'm talking about is Colorado's move from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. That was announced this week. Big time breaking news in college football, of course. For those that have maybe not been college football fans for very long, or maybe you're just very young, back in the day, Colorado was in fact in the Big 12. So they are kind of returning home in a way. But I will remind you that with USC and UCLA's departure from the Pac-12, moving to the Big 10 in 2024, if you do the quick math with me, the Pac-12 is down to 9 teams. And that's not very many when the likes of the Big 10 and the SEC will have 16 teams next year. The Big 12 themselves has 14. They'll jump down to 12, but now they have 13. Look, never name your conference after a number of teams you have in it. I think we've learned that lesson by now. If there's a new conference that comes in, don't name it like Big 13, Big 14. Don't do it because conference realignment is crazy. The bottom line is, though, and this is where we can kind of start this discussion, is that Colorado's move back to the Big 12 puts the Pac-12 on life support. And that's probably being generous. They might be dead already. Mm-hmm. We're still waiting for the medical results, if you will. They might be just dead. But this is very, very tedious balance that the Pac-12 has right now, because they're one school away from leaving, from probably just having to fold the conference, maybe. And there's a lot of rumors that Arizona is going to follow Colorado to the Big 12. There's all sorts of other rumors flying around. Oregon and Washington to the Big 10. That's been kind of rumored. I'm not even going to say reported because it's just rumors. But guys, the Pac-12 is barely hanging on. And this is all in the wake of a media deal that is still not signed. So teams like Colorado can leave and they will play in the Big 12 next year because there's no rules. Like, there's no contract set up. There's nothing that the Pac-12 has in place right now to keep their teams. The only thing they can promise the now 9 schools that are still in this conference is they can say to them, hey guys, we're working on the media deal. Wait and see how much money you're going to get before you go anywhere. These schools have to just take the Pac-12 at face value, and it's no surprise that Colorado said, yeah, we're not interested. The Big 12's got a good media deal. We're going there.
Man.
Yeah.
This is a crazy turn from honestly just a few years ago. I remember, barely 10 years ago, Pac-12 was about as top as anybody else. They were at least staking their claims. It was Oregon in the championship in 2014. Like, this was a powerhouse conference. You had, strong USC, you had historic and like revered UCLA, you had very cool and flashy Oregon that may be inconsistent with some of their gameplay, but at the very least were fun to watch. And now there is very little incentive for any media like company, any TV deal. Like, if I'm a production executive, like, I'm not thrilled with who's remaining. Like, there's nothing. I don't want to insult the other teams, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what other teams are on right now. But like, if Oregon's out, if Washington leaves, those are your final money makers, if you will.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The Big Ten can. The Big Ten can pull the plug at any moment. Like,
yeah.
And that's honestly was probably true before Colorado left. This is just, it feels honestly, rather than a quick, swift death. I mean, we are just death by 1,000 cuts to the Pac-12 right now, rather than just ripping the Band-Aid off and the Big Ten coming in. And you have to think the Big Ten's not jumping in to grab Washington and Oregon. One, maybe they get more favorable terms with Washington and Oregon jumping in. If those two schools are desperate, they don't have to give them a full share of the media rights pie Actually, Nebraska, Rutgers, and Maryland, none of those 3 schools that got their full share, I believe, for the first like 5 years that they were part of the conference.
Correct.
And that's typical for new members. Colorado's a little different. How the Big 12 signed their media rights deal with Fox and ESPN was they were going to get additional shares, basically, if they added additional Power 5 schools. Colorado meets that, so they're going to get their full, I believe it's $31.7 million in media rights immediately. And that's just added to the contract, so it's not taking away from any other school, which is great, which is why the Big 12 has to be thrilled with that right now. The Big 10, with what their contract is and how ginormous it already is, it's a behemoth of a contract. They're already having some schedule issues because Kevin Warren had no idea what he was doing and was just looking for a way to get back to the NFL and get a better job, which means the Big 10 schools probably don't want to split that pie up more with Washington and Oregon. They probably don't add quite enough, at least in the minds of Fox, NBC, and CBS, which is really all that matters. It's almost not really, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter what the athletic directors and presidents think, but if the media rights partners won't provide more funds, why would they split it up with more schools? I think that's the problem. Big 10 can pull the plug any moment, though. You grab Washington and Oregon, this is over. It's over. You're at 7. 8 is the bare minimum to even be considered a conference. And that's not really anymore, but minimum 8. I shared this with Aaron and Josh, and this is what I also wanted to move it to real quick is, guys, remember when the Big 12 first kind of got ransacked? Nebraska left for the Big 10. Colorado went to the Pac-12. Missouri and A&M leaving for the SEC. There was an alarm clearly sounded in the Big 12. And at the time, the Pac-12 actually had the potential of giving the death blow to the conference. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Texas asked almost to go to the Pac-12. And the Pac-12 said no.
It did.
And this is basically what I also want to say. Like, Kliakoff might not be doing a great job as commissioner currently for the Pac-12, but this is Larry Scott's mess that he inherited. And the university presidents. The Pac-12, and I don't want to make this like very stereotypical, but it is that very West Coast California mindset, ivory tower, if you will, especially with some of those California schools that they thought were better than you. Some of them don't prioritize athletics, especially football, basketball, the actual popular sports. It's that area of the country where something being popular in the Midwest or the South, basically by telling someone from California that, they automatically aren't interested because that's
a whole
not
coast of hipsters.
And that's painting with a really broad brush, but these are places of higher education. And what does Stanford, Cal, what do these schools do? Olympic sports, academics. You could hardly tell me that Cal actually even has an athletic program right now. They're awful at everything. Most of these other schools at least are good at some other random sports. They'll be good at like women's soccer or something. Cal's just awful at everything. Maybe they're good at fencing. Who knows? My point is,
Could be polo.
It's arrogance and pride that has killed the Pac-12. This did not need to happen. The Big 12 only went and grabbed West Virginia and TCU out of being desperate to survive. And that was only after basically the Pac-12 said no. The Big 12 would have been dead at this point. There would have been nothing left really to salvage. The rest would have been assimilated into, I guess, the Mountain West. The Pac-12 has dug their own grave. And by not having a media rights deal, and I have to give a huge amount of credit to Brett Yormark, the new commissioner of the Big 12. Technically, Texas and Oklahoma left under his watch. Again, really not his fault. He got there so late, the damage was done. He was not going to be able to save it. But he didn't wait like his predecessors and jumped on it. You could argue the Big 12 could have kept Oklahoma and Texas if they had expanded a couple years earlier. with UCF and maybe a Memphis, a Houston, Cincinnati, these BYU. Those schools were interested then. Remember, they spent millions of dollars to provide, hey, we'd like to join your conference. Here's our proposal. And the Big 12 said, no, we're good. And then basically a year and a half later, Oklahoma and Texas said, yeah, we're good. We'll go join the SEC. I also kind of hate this because for a competitive balance situation, imagine if Texas and Oklahoma were in the Pac-12. That would be wonderful for coast-to-coast conference football. That matters. It would have been so healthy for the sport. It would have been way better than Texas and Oklahoma being in the SEC. For balance's sake, not that I want the Big 12 to die, that would have been so much better. I have to give Yormack a ton of credit, though. He's been aggressive. He got that media rights deal done immediately. For him to get clauses in for Power 5 schools being added, and I believe they can use up to 4. So they used 1 with Colorado. They could add 3 additional Power 5 schools, apparently, and still do the $31.7 million for each school. He did a wonderful job. He knows he's not the SEC or Big Ten, but he's made the absolute best of a poor situation, and their aggression and assertiveness and going to the table quickly and not signing a stupid deal like the ACC that's like 12 years long or an eternity maybe. He has been aggressive and is trying to solidify the Big 12 as the best next conference after the Big 10 and SEC. He's done a wonderful job. And that basketball conference is nuts too, especially if they add Arizona. We're talking UConn, maybe even like if they got Oregon or Washington, which that's even, who knows, Oregon or Washington could get desperate here, guys. If the Big 12, if the Big 10 don't say yes, they don't want to get left in the dust. So there's a lot going on right now. Aaron's right. By the time the episode comes out, this might be outdated or we might be right on track. We have no idea when these things will be made official. The Colorado thing was really 24 hours between, hey, it's rumored, it's done. Like, we had heard things weeks and weeks ago, but it became real within like a 24-hour period. So it's nuts. We're far from over. Like, this is very far from over. I know you guys are going to talk about the Pac-12 trying to save themselves too. So I was going to say the Pac-12 could not easily, but could legitimately pull themselves out of this mess. It would be a 2 or 3 year slump, but there's a potential. There are certain teams that are maybe in a position on the West Coast to move into the Pac-12 now that they've made a name for themselves and established themselves. There's a chance. Some of them are not great. Sports Illustrated lists UNLV as a potential. Not fantastic, but also everybody's moving to Vegas, Josh.
Everyone's moving to Vegas, though. Everyone's moving to Vegas.
Yeah.
But groups like schools like Boise State or SMU, Colorado State, even San Diego State could theoretically be an option. Like, these are not impossible teams to get in. The question is, can the Pac-12 move aggressively enough to entice at least, I would say, 2 of them at the very least?
Well, Josh, that's a good point you bring up, because we just had San Diego State look at the Pac-12 and essentially say, you know what, just kidding. I think we're good in the Mountain West. Which, look, when USC and UCLA left for the Big Ten, the alarm bells in the Pac-12 were ringing. When San Diego State made their little venture and looked at the Pac-12 and said, I think we're good, then the volume on those alarm bells got cranked up to an 11 out of 10. The Pac-12 is in... Wow. This is rough. And look, I'm with you guys. I don't want to see the Pac-12 go away. We're talking about all the different problems, not because we're taking some phantom victory lap here. Like, this is bad. Like, yes, I know UCLA and USC are technically in California, but for the purpose of this conversation, just imagine that they've moved to the Midwest as part of their journey to the Big Ten.
We've shipped them so much Busch Lights, they better be ready.
West of the Rockies, there's not going to be any college football. Again, this is kind of Colorado being in the Big 12. They're in the Midwest now too. Yay. there's not going to be meaningful competitive in terms of the national scale of college football. Football
Yeah.
west of the Rockies, and that's just not good. You're getting to the point where your schools are just concentrated in the South and a couple in the Midwest, and that's it. That's not great for college football, or at least I don't think it is. I would prefer it to be spread out a little bit more. We've got a couple folks on YouTube joining us. One person added that the Big 12 won't add UConn because it doesn't result in additional revenue. So that's a good point you bring up, and I want to dive into that a little bit on the Big 12. One of the reasons why Colorado was attractive to the Big 12 is, number one, it's just another number for the Big 12 to add prime time in Colorado. There's a lot of advantages. But the Big 12 can add Colorado, and the TV networks will still pay the Big 12 an additional lump sum for Colorado joining the conference versus Colorado joining the conference, and every school has to give a portion of their revenue to Colorado. The second part of that's not happening. The TV networks are giving the Big 12 additional money for basically for free for Colorado joining, and that's because Colorado has an existing TV deal in place with the Pac-12, essentially. So when you're adding UConn, if you're the Big 12, that doesn't exist because UConn is currently an independent in FBS. They're in the Big East in basketball, but they're an independent. So for football, which is driving all of this money and driving all of this conference realignment, UConn doesn't necessarily add a monetary value the way Colorado does. However, if you believe the reports, the Big 12 really wants to get to 14. Now, maybe that's an Arizona that comes in, but I've also seen reports that if Arizona says no, that UConn's the school they're going to turn to next. And so, of course, maybe you're asking, well, why UConn then if they're not bringing in additional revenue? Well, maybe not at first. But long term, UConn's hitting a market that you're not currently in, TV-wise, in New England. It's not going to drive in as much money, but the basketball conference is going to be absolutely insane if UConn joins, and that will drive some revenue. UConn is more of a long-term play. There's also probably a little bit of faith that you have to put in UConn that their football program is not just going to be a complete dumpster fire like it has been until last year, essentially. And you're right, basketball is, and the comment says basketball is fun to talk about, but football is the driver. There's no question about that. This is all football. Like basketball is kind of a fun side piece to this that will be a really fun conversation in October when we're looking at the college basketball schedule and we're reminded of, oh my gosh, these teams are in this conference. I totally forgot about that. Not because they're not playing in football, because they are, but you just don't think of it in terms of basketball. And like when UCLA and USC make it to the Big Ten in basketball, that's going to be a really interesting conversation. We're not quite there yet. But that's kind of just, there's a lot of different wrinkles in this whole thing.
Yeah.
The Pac-12 whiffed because San Diego State was ready to make that move immediately. Yeah. And I still don't think they understand the urgency. Maybe it just now got through to them with Colorado leaving, maybe. But I think Colorado, honestly, was relatively patient with them. I mean, again, Aaron, you're saying, what me and you both said with the money for the Big 12 with Colorado. It's also because the Pac-12 current deal ends at the end of this season. Yes. So there's also no exit fee for these schools because Colorado, of course, will play this upcoming season still in the Pac-12. So there's also no exit fee, which also makes this even easier for the Big 12 to go poaching because there's no penalty for doing so. And in fact, what you just said, they're getting rewarded for doing it. They're not having to divide up the pie anymore. They're getting new additional money from Fox and ESPN to pay the share of the additional teams. So they're just going to get beaten to death because when the Pac-12, when they lost USC and UCLA, it should have been within a couple months. San Diego State was called and in. You got to find another school. Okay. Go find Colorado State's not great, but okay, that's a thought process. Boise State is there, UNLV. You can talk Fresno State. There are some other options. You even talked about SMU. If you want to go into Texas, SMU would have probably taken that jump in a heartbeat. Yeah. And you're like, well, Johnny, those aren't really great options. They're better than not existing because right now, those Mountain West schools, why on earth would they leave? At this point, you have a media rights deal. You still have funds coming in, which I think San Diego State, part of the reason they ended up, besides the oh crap, the Pac-12 is in trouble. They have money from coming in from March Madness going to the national title game. And if they left, they weren't going to see any of that.
Yep.
So all of a sudden they're like, maybe we'll stay and get our money that we earned for the conference.
And an important
So
distinction on that is the Mountain West TV deal runs until 2025. So it's also not like the Pac-12. You're right, because Josh, you brought up these teams, and I agree.
fees.
Those are the teams that make a lot of sense. But the Mountain West will have to pay those exit fees. Or the alternative is the Pac-12 says, hey, when you guys are done, come over here. But the Pac-12 may not exist by then. Like, you may be down to 6 schools and you're done by that point.
You might have to cash out. You might have to cash out some exit fees in order to get these.
Yeah, you're right.
But Josh, no one's paying exit fees without a media rights deal done with the Pac-12 so that they know they can afford the exit fees. So now it's a vicious circle, which is what the Big 12 and your mark saved themselves from. Because even when people got it done, and I even thought this at the time, I'm like, wow, that's okay, but I feel like you could have gotten more. Maybe they could have gotten more, but it was more important that the deal got done.
Yep.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
Like it was done. And if the Big 12 really does show that they're the third best conference easily, and they are a national conference, especially if you grab UConn, but they're already in 3 of the time zones, they will get more money next time when they come along. So I don't see how the Pac-12 escapes this. It's almost more reasonable to me to think that the Mountain West absorbs what's left.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Mountain
honestly
West is
where
easy.
I'm going at this point. Mountain West is actually in a wonderful spot. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
5 years ago. What a crazy thought.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. I mean, this
absolutely
kind
right.
of thing
This
has
is
sort of happened when the Big East disbanded. You had some mass chaos. Like, I know the American emerged out of that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. This is a mess. This is a mess.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unfortunately, the
Pac-12.
for every non-Pac-12 team, there is every incentive to stay, and for the Pac-12, there is every incentive to get teams as fast as possible.
Yep.
And one has more power to it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's
Well
not
put,
the Pac-12.
Sorry, Pac-12.
Yeah. Well put. So, Johnny, you said it. These changes happen next year, so enjoy the final year of the Pac-12, and that could be either literally or figuratively. Enjoy the last year of the 4-team college football playoff, college football as we know it today. A lot of big changes happening next year. And while I personally disagree with some of them, there are
Make plans.
This is done.
Cancel them.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of canceling plans,
No fall weddings. No fall weddings.
well, I'll tell you one guy who's got four extra weekends free in September. Jim Harbaugh, 4-game suspension.
Yes. That's the other big story that happened. And it's big, not in terms of like, it doesn't compare to the Pac-12, but it's big. No. Like, anytime a head coach of a potential championship caliber team gets suspended, that's newsworthy. Now, luckily for Michigan, he is suspended 4 games in which Michigan is hosting all 4 weeks. And they're, with all due respect to all the teams they're playing, some cupcakes, some real cupcakes. And we love the Power 5 as much as anybody, but if we're looking at the national conversation here, Michigan had one of the actually maybe the easiest non-conference schedule, literally in the Power 5. I almost said Pac-5. The Pac-12 is just absolutely broken my brain.
Pac-12, why don't you rename the entire NCAA? See if you could try that.
Ooh, Pac-133.
The Pac-133.
I like it. Basically, if you're not following this story, Jim Harbaugh had a couple very, very minor violations. One was as dumb, and not from his perspective, from the NCAA's perspective, was as dumb as buying a recruit a hamburger. The fact that is an NCAA violation at this point, when NIL is a thing, like, what are we doing, NCAA? We've put them in jail so many times. Like, that's dumb. Why is that a rule? I don't even care if Harbaugh broke it.
There's a prison just for them at this point. So
the other thing he did is he watched, I think it was essentially practice tape via Zoom during 2020, when it was supposed to be a dead period in which coaches are not supposed to interact with their teams. Now, those 2 things on them by themselves would have just been considered minor violations. Probably Harbaugh gets a slap on the wrist, and we move about our day. Harbaugh made the mistake of lying to the NCAA, and outside of giving college athletes the money that they deserve, there's nothing that the NCAA hates more than being lied to. And so Harbaugh suspended for the first 4 weeks of the season. Now, I think that's ridiculous. I know he lied. NCAA, get out of here. And look, this is coming from an Ohio State fan. I will have you know. This suspension is so dumb.
It's stupid.
I'm actually kind of glad for Michigan that they're not playing a big opponent, because that'd be just the most stupid suspension ever. Now,
Aaron, you know what's just as go ahead.
No, go ahead, Johnny. Tell me what's just as stupid.
As you say, you know what's just as stupid? The violations for the Class 1 do dictate that Harbaugh should be suspended 6 games.
Yeah.
What's equally as dumb is the fact that he's allowed to negotiate with them.
Yep.
If you have listen, I'm with Aaron. The rule's stupid.
Yep.
But if you do have a rule, just have the rule.
Yep.
Have the rule.
This is what drives us crazy about the NCAA. Sometimes
It's a law, unless you want to
Harbaugh's
talk
also
about it.
denied this probably a million times at this point.
Yeah.
The
Also,
NCAA is like,
suspension is
hey,
not-
you
has
did
the
this,
suspension
man.
been hit yet?
Like, here's your evidence. No, not officially. But they're like,
Exactly.
here's the
So-
evidence. You did this. And he's
Yeah.
like, no, I didn't. And they're like, the evidence is right here. You did that. And he's like, no. They're like, okay, well, now you're getting suspended. He's like, for what? I never did anything. Well, now you're suspended more games than that. Like,
Yep.
It's what Aaron said. It's just the lie. They hate the lying. That part always inflicts more damage. The whole thing's so dumb, though. Like, because he's finally willing to at least admit it, they're going to lower the suspension from 6 to 4 games.
Yeah.
That doesn't even make any sense. Like, none of this ever makes any sense. NCAA disciplinary action is a joke. We already talked about Tennessee before. It's garbage. So it's just as garbage as Michigan's non-conference slate this year, which is equally as bad.
Got 'em.
Michigan fans, get out of my mentions. I know you're supposed to play UCLA this year. Schedule someone else, man. There had to be
Back-to-back
somebody
years, too.
Yeah, they did.
you
They grabbed
could have
UNLV.
scheduled besides East Carolina,
East
UNLV,
Carolina.
and Bowling Green. Come on, man. Find something better than that. That's garbage. Michigan plays absolutely no one for the first 2 months of the season. I don't want to hear any belly aching when it comes to Wolverine fans that their last 3 games of the season are at Penn State, at Maryland, home against Ohio State. You earned
Tough.
it. You earned it because the early part of your schedule could not be weaker. If I'm going to yell about SEC teams and their schedules, I'm sure as heck going to complain about Big Ten teams too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's one of the worst schedules I've ever seen. And partially that's on Big Ten schools too. Get your crap together, Nebraska. Figure it out. But
Yeah. Where I will give some grace to people upset about this ruling. A lot of people are upset at this ruling, not because Harbaugh has been suspended for 4 games, but because at other schools where very, very similar things have happened, cough, cough, Ohio State, coaches have been fired for less than what Harbaugh did. Now, that was a long time ago. To be fair, the NCAA, in my estimation, has lost a lot of power just in terms of their ability to kind of judge these things. Like, clearly they have some. Like, Harbaugh is not just going to magically appear on the sidelines in week 3. But I think if, like you said, Johnny, if he was really going to get suspended for 6 games, and now suddenly a game, I need to pull up their schedule. I don't have it on me.
East Carolina, then UNLV, then Bowling Green, then Rutgers, at
His first game back is
Nebraska,
at Nebraska.
at Minnesota.
Thank you.
I'm not saying those are world beaters, but it's something at least, and at
No,
least they're
it's-
away games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if Jim Harbaugh
And we
actually
don't know
had that
about
6-game
Nebraska yet.
suspension and all of a sudden at Nebraska, at Minnesota's on the schedule, do you really think the NCAA is going to win that battle of minds between Michigan and the NCAA? They're losing power, partially because Congress has quite literally had to come in and strip them of power for being a monopoly and for various other things. So I get it. For those that want to compare the Tressel thing to the Harbaugh thing, I understand as a Buckeye fan, but the reality is we're talking about 2 different eras, and Harbaugh shouldn't probably even be suspended as much as he is now, and Tressel probably shouldn't have been suspended really either, or fired, or whatever, just based on the rules themselves because of how dumb they are. I understand he broke the rules. Yes, there are consequences to that. I get it. But just the stupidity of rules is way off the charts for just about all the stuff that's happening. So, yeah, sounds weird to say as a Buckeye fan, but as a Buckeye fan, even I am glad that Michigan's not playing a big name opponent, because it would be so dumb for the NCAA to interfere in this way with we just want to play college football. Get out of here. Stop interrupting our sport.
Let them buy a
away.
hamburger, for goodness
Yeah.
sakes.
Go away. And I know there's more nuance to this situation than what we presented, but really, I think at this point,
But
the
not a
three of
ton.
us, but
Not more nuance.
not a ton. I think the three of us are pretty fed up with the whole thing, just generally with the NCAA and their various means of punishment that seem arbitrary and capricious. And we, as arbitrary
Every
and
single
capricious
time
people,
I-
should know that.
Yeah. Every time I hear about a new NCAA rule being broken, I genuinely have no clue in my mind what the suspension's going to be.
Yeah.
What the punishment's going to be.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, he lied about a hamburger and then lied to the NCAA about it. I don't know. Death penalty? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
It depends on how their day went, Josh.
That's so
It's
true.
honestly, it's like
The wrong guy has a bad day. It's over.
It's like going to a car dealership. It's like, I know it says on the sticker this, but let's talk for 8 hours. Let's figure this out.
Yeah. So that's where we're at in college football. We have a conference dying. We have a coach being suspended. There's other news out there that a Miami booster is in all kinds of difficulties. So that, who knows what happens with that. We won't get
What a
into the
shock.
details. Yeah, I don't know, right? What a shock.
I'm
that
really
the Miami
surprised.
football
Miami's
program.
before-
They're so above board with this stuff.
Yeah, they are.
Miami's never had problems with boosters before. I'm sure it's nothing.
Yeah, that's a good 30 for 30. If you need some television, there you go. Watch the U. I think it's part 2. I don't even remember. Watch them both.
Watch them both. They're
Yeah.
good.
All right. Well, that takes us to picks of the week, and I promised we would get you an update on the U.S. women's national team. So it's time for that. Before we get to the preview of the U.S. Portugal, Josh, it is with great reluctance and sadness that I inform our audience that yes, the U.S. and Netherlands did in fact tie 1-1 as you predicted last week, which means that on our scoreboard, I've got 64 points, Johnny's got 57, Josh, you moved up with 55. So that's where we're at. U.S. Netherlands tied. So Johnny, what does that mean for the U.S. versus Portugal in terms of group standings and all that? What's the mission for the women's national team? What do they need to do to get the job done and move to that knockout round?
Right. So obviously we're going to the third game of the group stage for the U.S. and the Netherlands. Obviously they drew against one another. The U.S. won their first game against Vietnam 3-0. So currently they have a goal differential advantage on the Netherlands, but the Netherlands gets to play Vietnam. And the Netherlands beat Portugal 1-0 in their first game. So as far as finishing first place, I'll just start off with that. As far as finishing first, the U.S. most likely needs to win because the Dutch are going to beat Vietnam. So they need to, at minimum, win. And then they have to have a better goal differential than the Dutch because they drew against one another to finish first. It's just going to be who won by the most goals. Portugal is no slouch. So that's going to be an interesting take. And you know the Dutch are not going to let up on poor Vietnam if they get a couple of goals. They're going to go for first place there. Why does that matter? Let me just explain. People are like, who cares? The top two teams both go through. The top team in our group is most likely going to avoid playing Sweden in the knockout stage. Bane of the existence of the women's national team for the US, Sweden. They would like to avoid them. The second place team could be Italy. That's still really up for debate, but there's a significant drop off. You really want to get into first place so you have that easier round of 16 game. So there is also the not slight actually, Portugal controls their own destiny in this match. I mentioned they lost to the Dutch, but they did beat Vietnam. So if Portugal were to beat the US, if they were to pull off the upset, the US would be left out, assuming the Netherlands wins their match. So, which is a fair expectation. So, the US really, the women, the number one goal is just get a result. You get a draw, you're going through. You win, you're going through. That's number one. Always number one. Just worry about getting through. If they get up on Portugal, again, no easy task. look for both them and the Dutch to just pour it on their opponents. They're going to be extremely aggressive. This is why the third game of the group stage is so fun. They'll be played simultaneously, so there's no aid given to either of those teams trying to figure out what's going on. But Portugal's not going to hold anything back. They're going to go for it. And the U.S. has a lot more weaknesses than we're used to in this World Cup. And the world is caught up somewhat. We saw again, we mentioned it. If you missed it early on, Germany got upset by Colombia 2-1 in extra time today. Germany's still alive, but that's a massive upset from the number 2 ranked team in the world. The U.S. is ranked number 1. Anything can happen. Portugal is not the equivalent of Vietnam. They absolutely are capable of pulling off the upset. If you can, find a way to stay up and watch this game at 3 a.m. If you can't, record it, watch it later. Don't check Twitter beforehand. Oh, I'm sorry, X. Don't check X beforehand. Don't get that ruined for you.
Yeah.
Check out that game. Cheer on our ladies on the other side of the globe. Hopefully they can pull it off.
Yeah. I haven't figured. I think I'm going to watch it like in the morning and just record it and delay it. I think that's what I'm going to do. Because like 3 a.m. is a tough spot. Like staying up that late is because it's going to end at 5, but also getting up at 3. I know there's some of you out there, crazy morning people, that's not a big deal. I am not one of you and don't plan on becoming one of you. So I think that's what I'm going to do is just wake up and watch it when I wake up.
That's the tough part of Australia and New Zealand where the games are being played. And I think if Fox had known that third game would have been mattered so much, maybe they would have tried to pull some strings to get that one as a late evening game, just like the Netherlands game. But for sure, here we are.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep you posted next week how that goes. Hopefully lots more U.S. women's national team action to come. All right, Josh, you were the winner last week. You did pick the tie. Would you like to kick us off with what we are picking this week for picks of the week?
I would. I would be incredibly honored to once I pull that tab back up. Yes. Guys, and it brings me great pleasure to say this. Temporarily, but football is back.
Let's go.
It is the NFL Hall of Fame game.
And where is it held, Josh?
Oh, you know where it's being held. It is, in fact, being held in Canton.
Yes, Josh.
Yep.
At that one. Yeah, Canton. Oh, not Canton. What am I? Not from Ohio. Canton. No T. Never pronounced the T. Canton, Ohio. At that one stadium I drive by whenever I go to Cleveland.
Yep.
And it's going to be a fantastic game. Who is playing, you might ask? Well, none other than 2 of the probably heaviest heavyweights in the league, and that is, in fact, the Jets and the Browns.
Yeah. Over-under on snaps we're going to see from Aaron Rodgers. I'll set the over-under to 0.
-5.
-5.
Yeah. Is -5 that he suits up for the Browns and throws passes for them? Yes. Is that what -5 means?
I feel like negative. What does a throw on the sideline count as? Does that count as a pass? Is that like a quarter of a pass?
-5. -5 means he's the center for a few of these.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. They go full Zeke Elliott and put him at center.
Oh my god!
Yeah, try it out.
Yeah.
He's sprightly. Yeah, he's young.
Well, I will say, as a watcher of Hard Knocks, I'm intrigued to see how they work in this Hall of Fame game into the Hard Knocks series. That'll be kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I guess we have to pick this thing. I will say, disclaimer: if you bet on this game, straight to jail.
Why?
Yep, jail.
Yep,
jail.
That is,
and don't
for your own
give
protection.
Me any rationale? Yeah.
Yep. If there is any sign that
if you see something, say
need
something.
Help, if there is any sign that
need.
you need help, it is the fact that you put money down on the Hall of Fame. I didn't even normally. I like for fun. For some of these games, I'll check the Vegas odds just to see. Don't check the Vegas odds.
No, Aaron Rodgers won't take a snap. Deshaun Watson won't take a snap. You'll be lucky if any first stringers take one snap. I mean, how long will the second string even be in? I mean, don't. You have no rationale for which team's going to win this game. Stop it. If you see a friend in need, do something. Throw
or
their
something.
phone in a lake. I don't know.
Yep.
Whatever it takes.
Get them into a different sport. Take them down to a lovely. Go down just a few hours south. Go to Columbus. Go see a Clippers game.
Yes.
Go really anywhere.
Go anywhere
Anything
else.
but that.
Yeah.
Go north. Go north a few more out. Go north a little bit more. Go to Cleveland. Throw your friend in the lake.
Yeah. Or throw
the
your
lake
lake
in
in
your
the friend. Whatever
Whatever
it takes.
Get a bunch of lake. Take it. Put it on your friends.
Yeah.
Whatever's necessary.
Oh man, guys, I'm gonna pick the Jets
but-
just on principle. I can never pick something with Deshaun Watson in a positive
Yep.
manner, so I'm taking Jets.
I nearly picked the Browns, and that was the same logic for me, Aaron.
Yeah.
I mean, these are two of the worst franchises.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. Not in the NFL. In professional sports, they make the not top 10 of professional sports. Probably not number 1 and 2, but they're in the not top 10, both of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
They are. I'm picking Browns only because Deshaun Watson will probably not be on the field.
that's fair.
And I'm just guessing which third string team will be better.
Mhm.
And no clue. But let's see the Browns. And also, this could be their only win for all I care.
Yeah, I mean they're kind of home, right? Like
It's
a home game.
Home crowd, right?
Yeah,
home-ish
you
game.
think?
Browns
May as
fans
well.
are crazy. I mean, it should be a home game for them.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll report back. Yeah, but that's happening Thursday. There is actual live football happening on Thursday. It's on NBC. If you care to watch, it's one of those things where I'll flip on because I'm so football starved, and then I am watching this and I remember how terrible it is. But remember, even as bad as that game will be, all football is good football. Even if
amen.
you really have to convince yourself on Thursday, which you will, you'll really have to convince yourself
You
that
will.
this isn't assaulting your eyeballs. But all football is good football. That really applies to college football specifically. I'd actually argue bad NFL football is just straight bad NFL football.
I agree with Aaron.
College
Yeah.
football,
Also,
they're
I
being
do
no
take
such
back
thing.
for bad
the
football.
bets. I take back the bets a little bit. The one thing you can bet, the number of penalties.
ooh,
Pre-snap penalties.
Oh.
that's good.
I think
Yeah.
I'd be okay with you doing that.
Pre-snap
That's fine.
penalties.
Just don't bet
Yes.
who's winning the game. But
You don't bet
can
winning, you don't put-
pre-snap
yeah,
penalties.
anything.
Answer over
Nothing.
10. Over 10.
Always take the over.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, it's time for what we're following. It's our favorite segment of the week. Another Pepsi-related incident occurred. I don't know if you guys saw this. This was almost
Did
as
they
bad.
accidentally get the largest navy again?
No, actually, arguably worse. So, I take you back a couple weeks where we discussed the Pepsi ketchup, where Pepsi decided, you know what would be good? Let's infuse our Pepsi into ketchup, and it was not good.
No one.
I don't know if they just ignored the comments online of how bad it was, or if they took that like, oh my gosh, all press is good press. Let's try something else. There is a photo on Twitter, and it is called Twitter until the day I die. We talked about this last week, of Mountain Dew dogs. They are uncured beef franks. I'm reading straight off the package. Uncured beef franks blasted with original flavored Mountain Dew. And they
wait
are
for the
just
Baja Blast
bright
or
green
Oh
hot
my
dogs.
gosh.
I mean, Pepsi, what makes you think that we want regular junk food that's already borderline plastic or chemical or whatever you want to call it and just infuse more of that in the food? Like, no, we don't want Pepsi ketchup. We don't want Dew dogs. We just want you to have Mountain Dew. We want Baja Blast in our life every once in a while. We're simple creatures. We don't want this. This is horrible. This is a what we're following turn straight to jail because I can't. How does one look at the color of these hot dogs and actually consume this? If you have, let me know. I'm very curious to see how it tastes. But how dare you?
You think-
Aaron, you're saying that until Baja Blast comes, then you might change your mind.
But I'm not doing Baja. But see, it's got to be like Baja Blast, like a dessert. I could get behind like it's a carrot cake, but instead of carrots, it's Baja Blast somehow. I can get behind
Also,
that if
why
you're
is
in
there
the
such a
same
thing as
genre.
carrot cake?
But I don't want people somewhere. Some marketing guy thought, you know what people love? They love hot dogs and they love Mountain Dew. Let's just squish it together. No,
Oh.
you have done your job very terribly, sir. Now, I am talking about this on a podcast, to be fair, so maybe the intended audience has been reached, and the desired goal of having people talk about the brand has also that's happened. But this is just horrible, and
All
yeah.
press is good press, Aaron.
Oh, the color, and I know
we're
this is a
pushing the
podcast, and I'm
limits
trying
on
to
that.
describe a color to you all. It is an affront to the eyeballs. It's
It
just
looks
horrible.
like
I
something
mean,
in your
it's
fridge
as
that you
if-
forgot about that's in the back
Yep.
that should have been thrown out probably 4 months ago.
Uh-huh.
It's like, you guys remember,
belongs
like,
in
the-
the trash. Your
you know
body's
the
saying
col-
no.
You know the color of Shrek? You know, like his like shade of green? It's if like DreamWorks was like, hey, we're gonna make a whole IP on this.
Yeah.
And like
Oh,
you
no.
go to like DreamWorks, their own like, theme park, and you get like Shrek hot dogs in the
Yeah.
in the swamp part of their theme park. It'd be colored this exact thing.
Yep. There is
Unsharted beef
also
franks
a code
blasted.
red version of this.
Do you think?
No.
you
No, it's bright red then.
And what I'm hearing is,
Well, that-
based on
that
your
blends in.
reactions to this, is that we already have found our college football picks bet punishment.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
I'm okay
I'm
with
gonna
that.
find them. I'm gonna see if they're in Dallas. Do you guys think that God stays in heaven because he too is terrified at what he's created?
Stuff like this makes
is
me wonder,
evidence.
Josh.
Yeah, this is evidence to that point, Josh.
Oh,
This is
man.
evidence.
Let me tell you
Oh.
about a little doctrine called total depravity of man. Case one, these.
Yes.
Just give us Mountain Dew Baja Blasting cans again.
Mm.
That's all we want from you, Pepsi.
I also would like. I like hot dogs. Mountain Dew's
I also like
fine,
hot
but
dogs.
also Mountain Dew's terrible for you. So pick a
Give me,
different.
you know
beverage.
what? If
But
you want me
they're
to buy
both
Mountain
good.
Dew
I like
and
both. I don't
you-
need them together.
if
Like,
Pepsi,
don't
if
make
you're,
mac and cheese flavored chips. That's a terrible idea. I like chips. I like mac and cheese. I do not need them combined.
don't need
Sometimes I want salt and sometimes I want savory. I don't need the two of those things combined. They don't fit together. There was that moment in time when Lay's was losing their collective minds,
No, I will
and
say.
they're like, here's a pickle flavored chip. Here's one that
Hey.
tastes like ketchup or syrup.
Hey,
Well, they
hey,
tried
hey,
to tell
hey,
me this is chicken and
Ketchups.
waffles. It just tasted like syrup.
I won't take ketchup or dill pickle slander. Both
Josh,
slapped.
Chip flavored
Yeah,
pickles?
I've had them both. They were
No.
good.
Wait, I said that backwards.
Pickle-flavored chips.
Chip
Pickle-flavored
flavored,
chips, you're good.
flavored pickles.
You've
Ketchup-
invented something, Johnny.
ketchup-
Good job.
Ketchup chips.
Ugh.
Ketchup chips,
Ugh.
insanely popular in Canada.
That's
Well, okay,
more reason
since
why they're
when?
bad, Josh.
Yeah,
that's
since
that's
when?
not
they
a
have
point in
poutine.
your
They're fine. They're
favor.
poutine. They're fine. They're okay.
That's
Josh,
like saying
not all
that
bad.
these
Buy
hot dogs are wildly
Monopoly
popular in the
money.
UK. That's a bad sign. If Mountain Dew hot dogs are they're just buying them right off the shelves in the UK, that's when you know this
Oh,
product
yeah.
is absolutely doomed.
But that's the UK.
Yeah.
We know that the UK has terrible food taste.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
Canada has has not as great, but like
Josh,
they
they
have a solid
ruined
culinary
bacon.
history.
I can't forgive that. They ruined
I-
bacon.
They got hubris with them. If they just called it like Canadian ham or like something like that, we would have gone, oh, this is fantastic. They let their hubris get the best of them. There is nothing wrong with the way that Canadian bacon tastes, except for the fact that it is not bacon.
It's not bacon. It's not bacon. So
I will
that's
also
the number
say-
one issue, though.
Now, to your credit, I believe that Hawaiian pizza was invented in Canada.
Oh no,
I think that's right, actually.
I had no
So-
idea. I'm never going back to Canada again.
Also,
All right.
90% certain California rolls were too, but
All right.
You
Well,
never
I'll
know.
keep the train rolling with the food things real quick. First off, Dippin' Dots are overrated. Sorry, they're less ice cream, more money. You wait longer in line. You only get them at amusement parks, so you have to take out a second mortgage on the house to get just a few Dippin' Dots. So
and they
I'm just
all
gonna leave
stick
it
to
at
the roof of
that.
your mouth.
You can scream at me if you'd like to in the comments or on Twitter. That's totally fine. I welcome that in the reviews. So do that. Also, I'm going to go on a quick Women's World Cup rant. This is actually not just the women, but I'll start with a women specific one. I have a problem with the scheduling, and I know the scheduling was probably really, really difficult for this being in Australia and New Zealand. And there's just not a lot of other countries in that region of the world that are in the World Cup to make scheduling fun for people. Most of the countries that are very committed to women's soccer are really Western Europe and North America. You also have Brazil, so I'll give them credit. You have like country like Japan, Colombia just did wonderful too. But for the most part, there's not a lot of countries anywhere near those time zones. But I have a problem with today there being teams that are playing only their second match of group play and other teams who are finishing group play. I hate that personally. I just don't care for that at all. I want all the teams in all the groups to be done with their second game before we start the third games in group play. It just really throws you off. It's very confusing at that point. And if it is that for soccer fans, it definitely is for people who are really trying to get into the sport. So make it simple on people. Don't be doing that. That's really confusing. Second part of that is I hate in the World Cup that the first tiebreaker is not head to head.
Yeah.
That drives me absolutely insane. And it happened again this morning / last night, I guess. So in New Zealand's one of the host countries. They are now the first host country to not get out of the group stage. Australia could follow. They're not safe. But New Zealand didn't get out of the group stage. They beat Norway. Huge upset. First game of the tournament. Awesome. In front of their home stands. That's what the World Cup's all about. They win 1-0. They lose to the Philippines 1-0, which is a horrible loss. So I also say this with a grain of salt that New Zealand has done it to themselves. There was absolutely no reason to lose to the Philippines because Norway beat them today, I believe, 5-0. Norway is a very good team. They're just an infuriating team that decides to be good sometimes and not all the time. But Norway tied their other match against Switzerland. So Norway got out of the group with 4 points. Well, New Zealand also tied Switzerland today, but Switzerland won their game, so they got through on 5 points because they beat the Philippines as well. So they have 5 points. Norway has 4 points, and New Zealand has 4 points. But because Norway beat the brakes off the Philippines and won 5-0, and New Zealand only beat Norway 1-0, that means their goal differential is 0 because they tied and won 1-0 and lost 1-0. And Norway, even though they lost one of those games, their goal differential is 4 plus 4. So they go in over New Zealand, even though they both have 4 points. They played each other. New Zealand beat them head to head. They played the game.
Yeah.
That drives me absolutely berserk because it's not like we're playing 10 games. They're playing 3 matches. Head to head should be the first tiebreaker every single time. Then you go to goal differential. If you drew, obviously you go straight to goal differential. But when the two teams have played each other within the last week, have the team who won head to head go forward. So I'll leave that rant there. The men do the same thing. So that's not on the women. That's just on FIFA. I despise that. I mean, again, good on Norway. And if New Zealand had just taken care of business and just drawn against the Philippines, they would be going through instead. So it is still their fault, but that really stinks, especially since it's the host country and you want the host to go as far as they can because crowds are better, it's more lively, and you'll have a good Cinderella story too. And that would have been a huge upset for New Zealand to keep Norway out of the round of 16. So rant over. Off to you, Josh.
That's a rant worth having. Thanks, Johnny.
Good rants. Good rants. I want to end on a good note. We've had good rants, and I've had some rants. I've had some straight to jails in the past month or so. But I want to tell you about welcome to Chess Heads. I got a new sport for you guys.
Oh, I love it.
Woo!
This is a sport that I think we can all get behind. I don't know if there are any of these in Ohio. I know there are some in Michigan, and there are some in Illinois.
I'm out.
Wow.
And there's one in Texas.
Okay, maybe I'll think about it then.
Backhand. It's called whirly ball. whirly ball is a mixture, and I'm gonna quote from their whirly ball website. Hold on, I gotta get off of the disgusting Mountain Dew Glizzy's website. But
Oh man, I'm sorry you had to witness that, Josh.
whirly ball is a unique sport that combines lacrosse, hockey, basketball, and bumper cars.
Say that again,
I shall.
because I heard the words,
Whirly
but my
ball.
brain's still working on the processing part of it.
Whirly ball
there-
is a mixture of lacrosse, hockey, basketball, and bumper cars.
Okay.
For some reason, that makes me think they're on a sled. There's multiple sleds for each team on the ice, and they have basically the equivalent of a lacrosse stick, and they're trying to throw the ball into a hoop. Am I close,
Basically,
Josh?
They
Oh,
are.
all right.
Yeah, that's not bad. Instead of sled, it's a bumper car.
Okay.
But
Are they-
you are in a vehicle that goes a whopping scintillating 4 miles an hour. You are given a lacrosse racket
Oh, okay.
and a little wiffle ball. The place we went to was 5-on-5. I do not know if that is regulation, but the place we went to, like their local league, just won like the divisional championship last year. So I'm assuming they're
Josh, you
pretty
played?
much up to snuff. Yeah, this is something that we did over the weekend at the bachelor party. So we were told to go shell out some money for whirly ball. We did, and it was genuinely some of the most fun I've had in a long time. It
Wow.
was such a fun little sport. So it's essentially, ignore the fact that they say hockey and basketball. It's basically just a bumper car lacrosse. So you are all in bumper cars. You get your rackets, you get your little wiffle ball, and your team is supposed to get that wiffle ball onto your goal.
Josh, I have a
ours-
question. Quick
Hit
question.
me with it. Hit me
You
with
said
it.
it's 5v5. Does each person have their own bumper car, or is it one big bumper car for
That-
each team?
It is, in fact, individual bumper cars. That way you
Okay.
can do
Okay.
things like run
I thought so.
defenses.
Nice.
It's a good question, good clarifying question, but this is not like a Mario Party game. This is we are in fact in all individual cars.
It's a serious sport.
It's a serious sport. Listen, there are in fact regulation rules to this and national champions. Your goal is just to get as many points in a 10-minute period as possible. There are red and our cars were red and yellow, so there were red and yellow backboards on each end of basically a basketball, maybe slightly larger basketball-sized court, with a hole in the middle of them, each backboard. So the red team was supposed to score their points on the red backboard. 1 point if you got it onto the backboard. 2 points if you got it in the hole. 3 points if you hit it from across half court. And all we did for an hour straight was run into each other with bumper cars and play lacrosse.
Amazing.
And it was a fantastic time. It's like hockey in that there are rules for excessive violence, like excessive hitting, but you can just 100% check someone in a bumper car. No one cares.
Right.
Yeah, it's a
So
bumper
that's
car.
how
That's
that's
fun.
exactly. I was a sweeper the entire time. It was so much fun. All I did was run into people, steal the ball, and then throw it to someone who knew how to score. It was the best time.
Amazing. I'm on board,
It
Josh.
took us an
I'm
hour,
sold.
but we finally figured out how to do like actually run plays. It was once we figured that part out, it was over. It was great.
Nice.
That's amazing.
So whirly ball, if it's near you, I don't know, but if it's near you, go give it a shot.
Yeah.
It's here in Dallas, so come to Dallas and play it.
That'll be the next thing. It'll take over all of pickleball's momentum.
That's right.
See whirly ball popping up all over the place now before you know
Exactly.
it.
They just celebrated their 30th anniversary, so
Wow.
they're an established name
Mm.
in Michigan and Naperville.
Yeah. That's like Penn State's tweet they had a while ago that like they've had a player drafted in every draft, but then in like very small text it said, except for these 8 years. It's those kind of vibes for sure.
Oh wait, didn't another team do that? Didn't like?
Well, they're all mocking Penn
Yeah,
State.
yeah.
Though, at this
Yes. Okay.
That would be something that Penn State would do. I don't know why that's so fitting of their program, but anyways, they'll be good this year. Next week is football actually here, and maybe we'll finally get into a college football discussion, not in terms of conferences falling apart, which, yes, we'll probably certainly be talking about that again next week if that actually happens. But I've kind of teased it at the end of every episode for the last couple weeks. But yes, we really will talk about actual college football and NFL at some point. Just the news cycle has made it that we haven't had to do that yet. So it's coming. We haven't forgotten about it. Just there's been a lot of stuff going on. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Hope your week is going well. And we will talk to you guys next week with whatever sports decides to give us. It's really hard to tell, but that's why we love it. And that's why it's fun to talk about it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, feel free to hit us up on social media. We have our very own college football magazine releasing soon. So that should be reason enough to give us a follow over on whatever social media you want. Just not X. If you call it X, we don't want you. See you guys next week.